actually started the modern-day Sankirtan movement, or enacted it based on the vision of his father, Śrīla Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, whom Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta considered to be his Shiksha Guru. He didn't call him father, as some of his other brothers did. He considered that to be too familiar, because he revered him and considered him to be a liberated soul and his guru. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur had revived the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in such an imaginative way. And he had also been someone who was respected in society, because not only was he a great Vaishnava, but also he was well established, highly accomplished, actually, in his profession as a judge, high court judge, and a manager of the Jagannath Puri temple for some time. Also, he had a robust family that he managed quite well. And for those who are in the Grahastha ashram, a great hero, in the sense that he showed an example that a Paramahamsa Vaishnava could be engaged in the world and at the same time spread the Krishna consciousness movement and be completely surrendered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all at the same time. And of course, his main desire was to see that is, I'm talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not just be spread all over the world, but that people would be able to take them up. So he thought of ways and means to connect people to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. He wrote a book about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings and distributed it all over the world. Thoreau, Emerson received copies, other great scholars and thinkers in the world. And you know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, of course, set up the Namhata. It was a very elaborate marketplace so that people everywhere could have a responsible position in the Sankirtan movement, take an empowered role, and then network to spread it all over. First of all, India, and he had designs on spreading it all over the world. And he envisioned a way that people would come from everywhere in the world. Isn't that amazing? That Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur was such a visionary that he saw that there in Mayapur, he said, the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Europe, from Asia, from America would all come and dance and chant Jai Sachidnandan. 1975, I was part of a kirtan party going down that, what was it, a little dirt road there at the time, and there were hundreds of devotees from around the world chanting Jai Sachidnandan, the prescience of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he prayed. Prayer is powerful. We heard about that when we talked about Advaita Acharya and how he prayed for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what did Bhaktivinoda Thakur pray for? I mean, what is he famous for praying for? And why would I be mentioning it on Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura's appearance?
Pray for a ray of Vishnu.
Yeah, can you say more about that? What he meant by a ray of Vishnu?
So he wanted an empowered personality who would be able to carry forward the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore he prayed for an empowered personality who would be a ray of Vishnu.
Yeah, we saw Advaita Acharya do it. We saw Bhaktivinoda Thakur do it. And what happened? I mean, in the case of Advaita Acharya, Lord Chaitanya advented and started the Sankirtan movement. In the case of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the answer to his prayers was Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, Bimala Prasad. And at the time of his birth, it is said that Bimala Prasad's umbilical cord was wrapped around his shoulder, just like a Brahmin's thread. And then the Rath Yatra cart stopped outside Bhaktivinoda Thakura's house. His wife brought out Bimal Prasad, and a garland fell down to the child from Jagannath himself. So there were auspicious signs, and obviously the purpose of having children for Bhaktivinoda Thakur was to not just make them Krishna conscious, but he wanted Krishna conscious Ashaktavesh avatars to appear and help spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. That kind of a family is rare to achieve, and Krishna arranges for such personalities as Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura to appear in the homes of great Paramahamsas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So in his early days, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Bimala Prasad was noted for his scholarship, and in his later days, he was known as the inimitable Vaishnav who was absorbed in bhajan. For 10 years, he made a vow that he would sit in one place and chant 192 rounds every day, 300,000 names of the Lord. And his ultimate goal was 1 billion names. And so he stayed in just a very simple hut that leaked when it rained. In the meantime, he wrote in between and just fully focused on chanting. And from that bhajan, he had a revelation from the Panchatattva that he should bring out the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the world, which of course was in line with the desires of his father. And when both his guru, Maharaj, who received Diksha from Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had left the world, he was at a great crossroads, and he took that appearance of the Panchatattva in his bhajan as the impetus to then fully take up the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as it had been envisioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I want to bring it into sort of practical terms of how Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was also called Prabhupada, as we call Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. Trivikram Maharaj tells about how once when he was Prabhupada's secretary and he was they had just gone into a new room, they were traveling, and Trivikram Maharaj was setting up Srila Prabhupada's room. He had it always the same wherever he went. And there is a picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that he always had with him and he kept on his desk. And Trivikram Maharaj was wondering where to put the picture. There were a couple of choices of places. And his guru said, put Prabhupada over there. And Trivikram Maharaj then realized, oh, yes, he has his Prabhupada. So the name Prabhupada, the master at whose feet other Prabhus sit, was the title of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. And he had a very defined way of presenting Krishna consciousness, or his mood is discernible. And I want to look tonight through a few passages that were spoken or written by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura to see if we can identify ways in which his moods and methods have affected us, how we may or may not be living according to his ideals in spreading Krishna consciousness and practicing Krishna consciousness. Does that sound like something that you'd like to try? Okay. First, before we do that, however, I'll sing one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's favorite bhajans. By the way, his favorite author of bhajans was his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And one of his favorite bhajans starts with Bhajare Bhajare Amar. It's a song about remembering the great Vaishnavas and remembering the holy places. So let's remember Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It's his favorite song, and enter into the mood of that by singing it ourselves. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions at the end of, in fact, he more than mentions, he emphatically says that one who's teaching his devotees the message of the Bhagavad Gita is most dear to him. No one will ever be as dear to him as such a person. The Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that there are 3 categories of devotees. Acharyam eva hare pujam yasharaye hate atad shchanyeshu sabhakta prakrita smitaha. Acharyam eva hare, the person who's very exalted, elevated, the Kanishta Adhikari, has come to the point of worshiping the form of the Lord. It's a very important stage of coming to understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a personal form, is non-different from the deity. That person is absorbed there. Charyameva hare pujam ya shradaye hate, their faith, and it must be nurtured there in worshiping the deity. Tad bhakteshu chanyeshu, however, they don't see the devotee. They don't understand the fact that the deity manifests because of what's in the heart of the devotee. When a pure devotee comes and requests as the temple turns. When the pure devotee comes and requests the Lord to appear, he comes on the request of the pure devotee. So we can't see Krishna without the devotees, but in the beginning stages, the neophyte devotee doesn't understand the value of association with Vaishnavas, which is the root cause of devotional service. It's the root cause of advancement in devotional service. It's the root cause of coming to the perfection in devotional service. And that person doesn't also know how to do good for others or have the impetus to do good for others by spreading Krishna consciousness. Sabhakta prakrita smitaha. And then after some time, when the devotee is more advanced and comes to the middle stage, the Madhyama Adhikari stage, then she's described as being able to see various entities and to act appropriately with them. Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dusatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. The Madhyama Adhikari sees Ishvara, Krishna, and worships, gives all his love, her love. Then also notices the devotees and how exalted they are, and makes appropriate friendships with the devotees, and then sees the innocent and gives as much mercy as possible. That's the preoccupation of the Madhyama Adhikari, is giving mercy to the conditioned souls, knowing that Maya Mugdha Jivaranahi Sota Krishna Gyan. There's no way that they can come out of their entrancement in Maya, which is like an addiction that's gone too far. The living entity, out of curiosity, dabbles in the material energy and then becomes captured and devoured, and then cannot come free on its own. And it's not swata. It doesn't come out of it without outside help. It has to get mercy. So Krishna empowers the Madhyama Adhikaris to do this work and to give mercy to the souls of the world. The prayers of personified Vedas say that this is the most glorious pastime of the Lord, is saving the souls from the material world. And if somebody can be part of that, then how dear are they to Krishna? And so this is advanced devotional service, is troubling oneself for the sake of others to help them. Tapyante lokatapena sarva presojana. Parama aradhanam taddi purushasya akilatmana. Shukadeva Goswami says that Lord Shiva has this mood. Therefore, he's the greatest Vaishnava. He has the mood that, okay, I'll drink the poison to save the universe. Whatever sacrifice I have to make, I'll do that. His emblem is the blue throat. He swallowed it, held it in his throat. And then, of course, the Madhyama Adhikari knows how to artfully disengage from those who are envious so as not to make them more inimical. And then prays for them in hopes that there's a way that in the future they can take to Krishna consciousness. So, of course, there are mixtures of different kinds of Vaishnavas, but the Vaishnavas who are empowered by the Supreme Personality of God and the Acharyas come to the world and establish the ways and means that hundreds, thousands, and millions of people, of souls, can come to Krishna consciousness. And they do that in various ways typically by, of course, teaching. And much of that is in writing and setting an example. Also, sometimes building, like Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura did in India, mutts. A mutt is a place where you can go and fully culture Krishna consciousness. He provided facility for thousands of young men and women. He had his Vishnu Priya ashrams so that women could come also and be fully engaged in sadhana and preaching as well. So that's the work of the most advanced souls. Jiva Goswami very strongly says that if one is performing devotional service but is neglecting to give mercy to others and doesn't see that Krishna is in everyone's heart and the best way of worshiping him is to give mercy to others, such a person is doing yajna by pouring ghee upon ashes, as if the fire has gone out and there's no tangible result. So the point here is that the most exaltative moods of the Vaishnavas is to save others. Of course, the principle always holds that one must save oneself as well. Otherwise, how will one effectively help others? So both things have to be there. And in the life and teachings of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, we can take from various statements, which I'm about to do now, just to give a flavor for the way he taught and what his mood was. So this is, I'm reading excerpts from the Śrī Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava that Bhakti Vikāsa Mahārāj put together. And first excerpt I'm reading from. In a lecture of 1932, Śrīla Sarasvatī Ṭhākura stated how some disciples considered that by his spending profusely on preaching programs and printing, he was embezzling their hard-earned collections. He mentioned by name a particular leading devotee as one of several who thought it better to keep those funds in the bank. But he continued, my aim is not to make provisions and lay bricks for rascals who will come in the future. Possibly the structures already made will one day become dens of ganja and vice. He further commented that some of his men had voiced the opinion that now there were enough books and magazines, so all printing activities should be scrapped. There was no need for further hard work, for by showing the deity and receiving collections, the Matvasis could live happily. So what particularly caught my attention was the tenor of this statement, which we perceived in our Śrīla Prabhupada when he started the Sankirtan movement. He writes that I didn't come to establish temples, but I came to preach Krishna consciousness. Of course, establishing temples and all kinds of structure and management is necessary, but it's necessary to manage the results of preaching and not independently. As if you try to establish a management system or even lay bricks without having a forward thrust into the world to establish Krishna consciousness through going door to door, town to town, doing Harinam, Harikatha, and profusely distributing books, then you have nothing to manage except for a bunch of problems. And you're managing on a plateau. There's no real reason to manage. Plenty of other companies are worried about management and are struggling hard with all the problems that come along with managing people and projects. And ultimately, they're of little or no avail because they don't do anything to advance the human spirit. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mood, again, was, my aim is not to make provisions and lay bricks for rascals who will come in the future. So that mood can always creep into an individual's life or into the life of an organization, and that is that let's get comfortable. And as soon as I want to get comfortable at the expense of the Sankirtan movement or by living a life in the mode of goodness, then my advancement stops. So having the stimulation of fresh challenges to meet in expanding the Sankirtan movement, especially in bringing new people who are unacquainted, wholly unacquainted with Krishna consciousness into the fold, is vitally important. And we've been seeing it recently with new people coming into our Bhakti community rooms, and the freshness is palpable. It changes the atmosphere entirely when a new person who just walked in out of the rain of the material world comes in and feels the warm environment inside the Zoom room where devotees are gathered to speak about Krishna and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And so that has to be on the forefront of the minds of those who are in the Sankirtan movement, and that it is a movement meant to save the conditioned souls in the material world, not for finding comfort or becoming well established as in any material way. Furthermore, there's a way in which, by using funds and resources, as we heard in this paragraph, specifically for preaching, I mean, the mind can think, well, why not put it all in a CD somewhere, or so we can get fat? There's a way that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura resisted this in all of his mutts. In fact, elsewhere in this book, I didn't mark the citation, but he wanted that his managers, when they got big donations, to spend them on festivals, book distribution, and so on, so that they didn't have that feeling that, okay, now we're good. And now we can cruise, and now we can cop a lean. Refrigerator's full. I've got enough money in the bank, nothing to worry about. I'm going to lean out the window, drive down the street, and just enjoy my life here in the material world. But he liked the anxiety that where's the next thing going to come from? And isn't it that, hasn't our, over the last 10 years, the way we've, more than 10 years now, it's 14 years since our first monthly Sankirtan festival. Every time we set a goal and say, okay, we have to do this, that's voluntary. We decide nobody made us do that. We just thought it up and did it to ourselves. We put ourselves in anxiety. One of my friends criticizes me a lot. He says, all these self-imposed deadlines you're on all the time. And yeah, that's what we do. Otherwise, if we don't do it, who's going to do it for us? So catching the mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, that, yeah, make self-imposed deadlines so that you're not getting fat. You're not sitting back and thinking, life is good, I'm happy. Everybody else can go to hell because I got what I need and I'm okay. We should feel anxiety and be paradukha-dukhi, suffer because of the suffering of others. That's the mood of the acharyas, and that's the mood to catch up. I'm going to read another excerpt before I open the room for comments. The next one, I'll read two more. The next one I thought was a very interesting one, which goes to the utilitarian nature of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's teachings, for that matter, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, which is Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya muchate prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshabi parityago vairagyam palukukatyate. Means that everything should be used in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you leave something behind that could have been used, this is false renunciation. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura has a very interesting logo for his Gaudiya Mat. On it, you'll find various iconic images. And one of them, the logo is divided into two parts. One part is the Vaidhi Marg, and on the other, the path of devotional service and rules and regulations. The other is the Rag Marg. And guess what he puts over on the side of the Rag Marg? He puts the printing press. Just under printing press, there's the Madanga, and then the printing press and some kartals. And as you'll read from the history of the Gaudiya Mat, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura kept his devotees busy all the time. They're always busy. Every waking hour, they were doing some kind of service. He didn't want them sleeping. Prabhupada also, when he established ashrams, he said, these are not free hotels for lazy fellows to come and sleep, not free hotels. There are places where the devotees would come who have that spirit. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, those who have life, they will preach. They will go out and preach. And so everything is meant to be engaged in the Sankirtan movement. And here is the citation. This particularly about ashram and sannyas. He writes, Śrīla Sarasvatī Ṭhākura downplayed the fuss over introduction of sannyas by putting into perspective. The Vaishnava school does not attach much importance to this external formality of ascetic order. but considers it merely an ostentatious advantage for preaching work. Thus, although to facilitate his devotional service, a devotee may assume any situation within Varna and Ashrama, he identifies himself as the servant of Vishnu and the Vaishnavas, and not with any temporal position. So, of course, Gaudiya Vaishnavism went through many transformations after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the world, and various deviant groups grew over time by misinterpreting his teachings. And there are in these various groups, many imitated Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. Of course, Vaishnavas before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura in his line would, to show their renunciation, follow in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, put on white as Babajis. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura reversed that trend and introduced the Daivi Varnashram and the sannyas. So for those who were to come into the full order of engagement in Mahaprabhu's service, he would give them sannyas. And this meant holding the Tridanda, body, mind, speech, and soul, because there's actually 4 poles inside that thing, engaged constantly in the service of the Lord. So just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas because he wanted to bring people closer, so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura himself took sannyas and also had his followers take sannyas as well, so that they could be fully engaged in preaching. And it wasn't important unto itself other than its utilitarian nature. And we find this in our Srila Prabhupada's teachings. In fact, there was a controversy early on in our Sankirtan movement about wearing different kinds of clothes. And it occurred in the early 70s when one of the Sankirtan leaders and temple president had found that when devotees went around to distribute books, they were noticeable wearing dhotis and saris, to say the least. If you walk in a mall in a dhoti, people definitely notice you. So he had them go to the Salvation Army and get outfitted with regular clothes that fit in with everybody else. And when they started wearing those clothes around, they would stay out longer, stay in longer in all the different places that they went. And somebody complained. Actually, one of our leaders complained and wrote a letter to Prabhupada, said that the devotees were going back to being hippies because they were wearing these different kinds of clothes. And Prabhupada said, oh, stop them then. But then the leader of the party wrote to Prabhupada, said, but Prabhupada, we're doing this as a utilitarian measure in order to distribute more books. And then Prabhupada said, tell them they can wear the clothes. And he wrote a purport about it. When Prabhupada put it, immortalized it in his purport by saying that devotees do this in order to spread the Sankirtan movement for the sake of preaching. It's utilitarian. You can wear whatever gets the job done. And in fact, that's what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. So we find this in the mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. His mood about sannyas was that it's an external formality. Gopi Bhartu Padakamali, or Das Das Anudasa. We don't identify with these varnashrama statures other than to utilize them for expanding the preaching of Krishna consciousness And having facility to dedicate ourselves appropriately at every stage of life, whatever ashram we are in. Okay, one more at page 216. And this is the way in which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta instructed his matvasis. That means those who lived in an ashram. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's general instruction to matvasis was to daily go for bhiksha for a minimum of half an hour and visit at least 5 houses. He would say, go and repeat the message of Krishna, and while speaking, also hear it yourself, and thus become purified. Even if no one gives anything, at least people will see you and be reminded of our mission. But devotees with specialized engagements, particularly deity service, cooking, or publication work, were not required to go out. Śrīla Sarasvatī Ṭhākura did not underplay the challenges of preaching. He likened dissemination of Lord Chaitanya's mercy to free distribution of first-class mangoes, which would find few willing takers and more likely invite suspicion and skepticism. He said that the genuine speaker of Harikatha will certainly be severely mistreated by materialists and sometimes even by demigods. Nor did he uphold the artificial distinction generally made by Vaishnavas between bhajan and prachar. Rather, he stated that prachar is the natural kirtan of siddhas and is essential to the sadhana of sadhakas. Bhakti is high sadhana. Because if we enjoy nice fruit but don't desire to share it with others, then our own stock will decrease. For seeing our stinginess, the original source will cut our supply. He declared, Jivera viparita ruchi, parivartana karai, sarvapekha, dhayamoy ganera ekmatra kartavya. The only duty of all merciful persons is to transform the contrary inclination of conditioned souls. I'll read that again. If you want to get a tattoo, it's short enough. The only duty of all merciful persons is to transform the contrary inclination of conditioned souls. That's full-time work. And that's our job. To effect this, he wanted to create Goshtyanandis, preachers who cooperate with Lord Chaitanya's mission for increasing the number of devotees. Period, full stop. So this is actually advanced devotional service, sacrificing your peace of mind. And actually it's counterintuitive because we get real peace of mind when we do walk out of our comfort zone. It's only anxiety in the comfort zone. It's only an imagined comfort zone. And when we're in the service of Mahaprabhu, by risking our peace of mind by going out, we actually get peace of mind. I guess that's a kind of paradox. I don't know. But that's what we were taught by our esteemed Acharya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. And Prabhupada taught us the exact same thing. Not only did he teach us by speaking, he did it himself. How much more uncomfortable can you get, supposedly, than to walk out of your home country with no facility and get on a boat as the only passenger of a freighter and come to a foreign land where there's really a zoo-like situation going on. The humans are acting in bizarre ways, especially contrary to the culture of Vrindavan or any kind of Vedic culture. And then your job is to be with them. You're their only guide and a hope in life. You take all that responsibility on your head. What does that feel like? Well, Prabhupada expressed it by his ecstasies, which poured out of him. When one gives like that, then the supply becomes unlimited. Prabhupada had unlimited supply of Krishna Katha, and unlimited supply of energy to write books, to write letters, to manage, even as he was preaching from morning till night, and then writing in the wee hours of the night. Krishna gave it to him because he gave. So this is what we get from our acharyas, is this mood of, if you want to be happy, then do high sadhana. And high sadhana means to organize your life in such a way that you have the wherewithal, you fortify yourself sufficiently and edify yourself sufficiently so that you can then give others the opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. And if you can do that, you're following the mood and the footsteps of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. I have a lot more, but let's take a few reflections, because I'd love to hear how this is sitting with you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, Madhava Govinda Prabhu, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class. I just had a question with respect to what you were just mentioning about the life of Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura, about how he encouraged every one of us to be messengers of sharing the Krishna consciousness. How do we get a balance? We also see in Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura's life itself that he spent 10 years of his life doing bhajan in Mayapur, chanting 1 billion names. So how do we understand both of these things and apply it in our life?
There's a time every day when you should take full advantage. It's called Brahma Muhurta. So you don't have to wait for a 10-year period to open up. Just wait for an hour and 40-minute period to open up every day. If you organize your life around this, that I take full advantage of that hour and 40 minutes every day, then you're applying the principle. Then there's a time every month, 2 times Ekadashi. Organize a work for Ekadashi, wait for Ekadashi, fully lean into it if you can. If you can't, pick some holy days, because there are, I think, more holy days in Gaudiya Vaishnavism than maybe in any other religion in the world. Then lean into those as much as possible. You know, we started that tradition at ISV many years ago when we were in that tiny little place, that little oven we used to have Janmashtami in. And, you know, we'd all come down there early in the morning at Mangalartik, and then we'd stay until midnight, and we never stopped hearing and chanting. You walk out of one of those and you're an improved person. And then there's a time every year when you could take full advantage. Kartik. Take the month off. Tell your boss, I ain't working. Too bad for you. Find somebody else if you don't like it. And find a place where you can sit down and hear Bhagavatam all day long for a month, 30 days. And when you walk out of there, you'll be a different person. Improved. And if we do these things daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, then we'll develop an acumen for doing a 10-year stint when the time is right. And otherwise, nobody can sit for that long. Prabhupada engaged us in preaching and said, you know, later on you can do, because can you do it? I mean, let's see you try to put in a 10-year period of hearing and chanting. Generally, the mind will go hearing and chanting for some time and then go, yeah, but what about, you know, isn't Pakistan playing India in the cricket match? There's some scars in there that take a while to become purified until we have a taste, actually, for hearing Krishna Katha and chanting Hare Krishna. And that means we should steadily engage throughout the various periods of our life, even as we're working. And, you know, you can even start with karma yoga. The process is so powerful. Neha bikramana shosti pratyavayana vidyate solpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahto bhayat. You know, if you can't do that, Krishna says, then do something else that you can do, like work for me. If you can't do that, then just try to be charitably disposed, but start somewhere. And by the mercy, it comes down to us as mercy to get such taste. Shushu Shoshodatanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevayavi Prapunya Tirtana Shevana. If we can serve the great Vaishnavas, fulfill their desire, they'll bless us. That, okay, now you can hear something, and now you can chant a little bit. And it comes down to mercy. You see people all the time, they're very eager for Krishna consciousness, but they can't chant more than one round. They say, I don't have time. It's not time, it's taste. Everything's taste. So everyone has the same amount of time. So it doesn't make sense. I don't have time. But they chant one round and they pray and they get association and they listen to classes. And then next time you see them, they say, I'm chanting 4 rounds. And they keep praying and serving. And next thing they say, God, I'm chanting 8 rounds. And then one fine day, they just say, I'm chanting 16 rounds and I'll never stop. How did that happen? It happens by the descent of grace that comes from service. So Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura engaged his devotees 24 hours in all kinds of services. He told them to chant 64 rounds, but they really didn't have time. But he kind of equated this constant seva with the chanting as well. It's not different.
Thank you very much.
Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Anud Brahmji Śrīla Prabhupada.
Jai.
Maharaj, when about that peace of mind which you said that when you go out of out of your comfortability and when you go out and you get that peace of mind, but while sitting you don't get. So I have realization that when there was COVID and we were not going out distributing books, then I was feeling very dissatisfied. And even when I was going out, out alone, I used to get these hibis, when inner nervousness when I used to go out alone for books. But after on that days, it was book distribution was good, and after that I used to feel a huge satisfaction. And at that time I used to get the questions like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then that used to build my faith more. I used to answer, why am I doing this? It's like new challenges, which I feel, because of which I feel I get satisfaction and I am advancing. And also like inviting new people and talking to them. Also, I never used to do it, but after this bhakti community and things, I used to ask them. Otherwise, I used to just give them books and say them, okay, that's it, and take the donation. But now you have to talk more. You have to engage. You have to get talk and converse with them and bring them. I mean, it's a new challenge, and then I feel it's really that afterwards gives the peace of mind and satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to read a section here that I think relates to what you just said. I picked it out earlier, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada writes, the mutt is the center of Hari Kirtan, and Hari Kirtan is life and consciousness. To make sure there is no place for sloth, bad contact, trivial thought, gossip, or vulgar desire at the mutt, you must go door to door where your Hari Kirtan will be tested by the public.
Yeah.
They will think they are the givers and you are the receiver of alms. In other words, that their status is higher than yours, and will criticize you in many ways, considering you objects of their mercy. Perhaps also some of them will be ready to kick you out. then on one hand, you will be able to become trinad api sunicha, lower than straw, and manada, respectful to others. And on the other, you will take sincere care to make your lives and characters pure and exemplary. Besides, it will be beneficial for you that you are correct, that as you correct the mistakes of the common people by citing the message of sadhu, shastra, and guru varga, you yourselves will not commit those same mistakes. So, yeah, it's really powerful when you bring somebody, like even now in the Bhakti community, if you invite somebody to come on the call, you have to come. That's something I've heard from various devotees. It's like, yeah, I invited somebody, and if they come every Monday, now I have to come every Monday. And it's like, you know, people have kids, and then the kid's like, okay, let's see you do it, Daddy. You know, you have to follow. Otherwise, why are they going to do it? So it's really important sadhana. It's high sadhana to do this. This is coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. We didn't make any of this up. That's the mood of the Goswamis, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to go out and give to others. And by that, actually, we refine ourselves. How else will we overcome these various samskars except by putting them to the test and testing our resolve to go out and present Krishna consciousness makes us stronger. As Krishna was just saying, there's a way in which when we are explaining it to others, we have to explain it to ourselves also. People will challenge us all the time in various ways. And some people take, some people won't take. But even as we're seeing them not take, we may see it in ourselves as like, yeah, I'm like that too. I don't take it sometimes either. Why am I like, how can I be critical of them if I have the same proclivity? Prem Sarovara. You're up.
Hare
Krishna. Jai.
Yeah, this reminded us of the past Live to Give campaign. One time we were called in the evening, and the speaker on the other side said, "I'll call police. And you're disturbing me at 8:30 p.m. Central. And this spam call is going forever. And I'm fed up with it." So we had to tackle it in the right way, but it reminds me of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Mahārāj's comments and purports. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, you're not really preaching until somebody calls the police. And that got started early on with Srivas Thakur at the Srivasangam. People called the cops almost every day. And they threatened to throw his house down the Ganga. He said, "Dad, why don't we just get rid of his house, stop this whole thing?" And then Mahaprabhu was very aggressive, actually. He said, "Now go out on the street." I mean, people already didn't like it. And then he said, "Take it out on the street and do it everywhere, on the street corners." And then people escalated it. They brought it up they took it downtown, and they took it to City Hall. They said, "Look, we're Hindus and we don't like it. Can you do something about it?" It was a Muslim government. And they came, broke the Madungas, said, "You can't do this anymore." And Mahaprabhu said, "We'll see about that. We're doing it anyway." And took all his people, and demigods showed up. Tens of thousands showed up at the house of the police chief. And he just told them that, you're a reasonable fellow. Maybe you should reconsider. He had already visited him in the form of Lord Nrsingadev, and he was a little more malleable at that time. So let's see, how's the order go? Is it Sukeshri and Ashraimata? I forget, who's
Sukeshwari Mataji.
Sukeshwari Mataji first out, or first in, first out, or how's it go? FIFO?
I think Sukeshwari Mataji first. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you're up, Sukeshwari.
Thank you, Prabhu. I was remembering when Prabhu was mentioning Prem Sarovar Prabhu that about maybe 10 to 12 years ago, we had kids go to an apartment very close to our Bascom Avenue temple. And so we knocked the door, and one of the ladies that opened the door, which I was with 3 kids, and we divided ourselves into different groups. And she said that, I'm going to call the cops now. I don't want you to do this here. So I said, okay, if you don't want, then we're going to leave the place. She let her dog out, and the dog was running behind the kids. So I told the kids, dogs are very nice. Just chant Hare Krishna, stand there, just chant. And the dog, if you don't run, the dog will not run. So then stopped, and the dog was trying to go around us. And we started going, I told all the other groups, we have to leave the apartment because, she doesn't like it. Well, she started taking pictures of our cars. And then everybody, all the kids were very worried, and they all got in the cars. We went to the temple, we sat down and discussed. I said, even if she has pictures of us and pictures of our cars, well, what is she going to prove? Because she can be taking pictures of cars that are parked in the parking lot or, anybody walking. Well, at that moment, we had to tell some of the kids that we don't have to worry, this is something we want to do for Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu will surely protect us. But wherever they say if they don't want us to do it, then we just leave the place. So I was just remembering that part. But I think that really helped us realize that how we have to be careful as well. And especially when we are going door to door. But I have never had this situation ever come up, in all these years. But that was the only situation. I was just remembering that rule.
Vayurlin anilamambritam atedam bashmantam shariram om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara. In this prayer, the devotee says, please remember all I've done for you. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, you don't have to remind Krishna. He knows what you've done for him. And especially those who have made some sacrifice like this. You're not doing it because you're breaking into people's houses. I mean, then I could understand them calling the cops. But people just get agitated because they're agitated. It's natural. And when you're the brunt of that for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that goes on your permanent record. And Prabhupada said that. When he heard of the kind of war stories that were coming out of the airports at one point, he told us that just as during the wartime, a simple farm boy from the Midwest would join up, enlist, and they'd put him on the front lines because they're basically cannon fodder. And he'd save somebody, not just fight valiantly, but also save somebody else and come home and get a Purple Heart award or whatever it is, a Medal of Honor, and become a hometown hero. And he said, so if you enlist in the Sankirtan movement, then you'll also become a hero in the Sankirtan movement and be recognized by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, Ashraya Madhava Prabhu and then Rupa Manjari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nice lecture. And I was just reflecting on when you said that Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura, you're talking about that Mridanga, Brihat Mridanga, and the printing press. I was just reflecting that why mass preaching has become and almost like an emergency situation in today's world, and even from that time when Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura saw it that it is going to be emergency, we have to do mass preaching, because in olden days people used to, the innocent people would normally, if they had doubts, they will go to like saintly people or they will be gathering to clarify their doubts. There were no lot of books floating around, right? And Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura saw that the atheists and they will actually teach mass in the name of literacy. Just they will teach them ABC and then they will let them read whatever they can, all kinds of newspapers and abominable magazines, and they can corrupt their mind. So Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura, I think, saw that this is an emergency situation and these people have to be protected. We cannot just let them, learn ABC and read all kinds of things. So they should know what is the balance in spiritual and material life. I think I have a feeling that he saw that as an emergency. So it is very important that almost every person should know that there is also a spiritual life, right? So I was just reflecting on that.
I like your reflection very much, Ashraya Madhava. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rupa Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri
Hare Krishna.
So I had one thing, which was when you were talking to Prabhu about every day, every week, every month, every year, like this cycle. Because this time in March every year, I redo my calendar because Gaur Purnima is coming and the new Gaurabda is coming, and I sit down and I make sure that the next set of Vaishnav holidays are in my Google calendar because they're different in different places, right? And so I was thinking about the calendar, and my sister gave a talk in Columbus, and somebody brought up the fact that he was a great astronomer in his student days. And actually, he took the calendar of the Panjika and he made it the Sri Vishuddha Siddhanta Sri Chaitanya Panjika. And he, like, a lot of our things had been lost, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had gathered them all up. And so you said that we have so many holidays. We have so many holidays because we have so many Vaishnavacharyas, and on their appearance day, disappearance day, and then we have all the Ekadashis, and we have all these Tithis, and Varahada, last week was like, totally amazing. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura reestablished the rules for calculating that and making it so that we all can observe that. And that's this like amazing tool for us to sort of every morning like look up and think of, what does Krishna want me to think about today? It's Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura made that for us. And it's like taking time and adapting that for us. But he took the work of other people who had done the astronomy, and then he was a genius himself, and he was able to then combine all of those things and make it something that we can all use, and it can be calculated all over the world. Like everybody is following that.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us of that. How in such a practical way he did that. Acharyas do that so expertly, we barely even notice it. They retrofit everything so that we can remember Krishna. Jiva Goswami in his way of teaching Sanskrit, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his way of reinterpreting what anybody says that seems to be detrimental against Krishna, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta bringing forward practical ways that we can remember all the Vaishnavacharyas. That's why one of his favorite songs was the one we sang at the beginning. It's a remembrance of all the great acharyas. Thank you very much for sharing that. Is there another reflection you wanted to share about your Guru Maharaj and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta? I insist upon it.
Oh, okay. Well, you said something about how fresh everything is when a new person comes. And I was remembering two things. One, so my mother, she was born with knowing kind of in the Gauriya family because her grandparents were Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura's disciples. And because of that, she was always fascinated by whenever she met Srila Prabhupada's disciples or grand disciples or great-grand, she always said, tell me, how did you find Krishna? She always wanted to know like all the, different stories. And so like my whole life, I kept hearing all these different stories. And I noticed whenever anyone is telling the story of how they found Krishna, it's like etched in their mind and their face changes when they're reminding that. I've seen it happen with you when you talk about Ricky or something and the VTG in your room. It's like you're right back there, right? And my Guru Maharaj, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, who was Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, he once told us a story about how in the beginning, the first few days that he was living with his mother in Kolkata, and he found Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura again. He'd actually seen him as a child from a distance, but he found the Gauriya Mat was established, and he started going in the beginning, and he was going every day before work, and then going to work, and then going every evening. One morning, he stepped in his shoe to go to work, and a scorpion was in his shoe, and it stung him because his foot went right into the shoe, right? And black blood started coming out of his foot, and his mother almost fainted crying because people die from this routinely. And she had lost one son. She thought she was going to lose him. And she wanted to take him to the hospital, and he said no. And he got in a rickshaw, and he's like, if I'm going to die, I have to go see Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. And he wanted to he went to the Mat with that bleeding foot to pay his obeisances because he was like, I might die. I need to go see him. And then he sort of laughed and he told us, I still had that Nava Anurag, that new Anurag, that's so sweet. And that when he, when he was telling the story again, it was like he was there, right? Obviously, he's not bound by time. He was a Mahabhagavat. So, and we have all heard the story of Śrīla Prabhupada when he went to the Ulta Danga, the roof, and that when he was told, you have to go, then you should preach it around the world, and like it's so etched in his mind. And so that that nava of that meeting with the Guru Varga is very powerful, and it's actually very exciting to hear that about everyone. And I mean, if you've ever heard all the other disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, if you hear them talk each of their stories when they met him or saw him, or when they really connected with him and realized he was their master, they're each like these little jewels of and just like with with all of your god brothers. So I just was thinking about that. Actually,
in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, this narration that's going on is prefaced by Gopakumar saying that actually Vaishnavas don't like to talk about their own stories. He said, but actually it's because it's the best way to impart Krishna consciousness. I'm going to do this. I'll take the liberty to do this. Thank you so much for sharing, Rupa Manjari. That was extraordinary. Ankita?
Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, I think Anirudh Nitai Chand Prabhu raised his hand before me.
Okay. Anirudh Nitai Chand Prabhu?
Accept my humble obeisances. I had a question. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Shastri Thakur mentioned that to beat the mind, I think certain number of times, 10 times he mentioned, I don't recall exactly, in the morning and also before going to bed or at night. Can you please explain a little bit more like what he actually wanted to mention?
Yes.
Instruct us to do.
Actually, it's in this book. I don't have the page number, but I read it earlier today. This very famous admonition that you should beat your mind with shoes in the evening, broomsticks in the morning, or maybe it's vice versa. Take your pick. He equated with one of the enactments was singing this bhajan that we just sang, Bhajare Bhajare Aman. He said, this will, if you sing this in the morning, this will beat your mind with shoes 10 times. And so there's, it's really about the bhajan. We're not into any acrobatics or, anything like that. It has to do with engaging your mind in Krishna Katha and getting a taste for that. When we take our minds away from the other engagements, hearing Gramya Katha, for instance, is something that the mind becomes addicted to. So many different kinds of topics to hear in this world. In the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami mentions there are thousands and thousands of topics going on in human society. But actually, they're simply about the materialistic endeavor, sitting on an egg, waiting for it to hatch. It's going on in the bird society and the worm society everywhere. It's not a big deal. And it's an entanglement. So becoming used to hearing about Krishna Katha, and if the mind doesn't want to go there, you have to live in an ashram. Your house has to be an ashram where that's automatic. The sound comes on when you wake up. No other sound should come in. That's beating the mind with shoes. You should have that opportunity. So the mind says, I want to hear Gramya Katha, but then you turn on your Krishna Katha instead, and now the mind is beat. Okay, now I don't know which order to call on anybody, but is it Ankita or Ankita? Okay, good. We have a scorekeeper. Ankita and then Manjula Kanta, and we have Sankirtan Dasi here. Oh my God, good to see you. Hare Krishna. Okay, Ankita, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So I was actually thinking about how you mentioned para dukha dukhi. It was a very deeply reflecting for me, because I was like, initially I was remembering about how Prahlad Maharaj, his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, he said that I have no problems of my own, but because I know how to glorify your transcendental qualities, but I'm thinking about these people who are here and enjoying with their temporary happiness, like without any knowledge of devotional service, and how he was so compassionate towards these fallen conditioned souls, even his own father and everyone. And in another context, we were reading Bhagavad Gita with Shivas Pandit Prabhu, and in the Bhagavad Gita, it mentions that there are 4 categories of dushkritnas, and one of them is naradhamas. And naradhamas are people who are basically very socially and politically developed, but no religious principles of their own. And the people who lose the chance to revive their lost relationship. And the point that struck me was like, what's the hope for those naradhamas is the mercy of devotees, which again is like para dukha dukhis. So someone actually came for us, or came for me to deliver, or to at least make me Krishna consciousness. So yeah, para dukha dukhi is a very nice, para dukha dukhi is a duty of every Vaishnava or every man. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
That was very heartfelt and beautiful. Thank you so much, Ankita. Manjula Kanta?
Hi, Krishna Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, you were talking in the very beginning about the Kanishta Adhikari, and you said that the Kanishta is one who will see the Lord in the temple and interact with the Lord, but he will not be able to understand the value of association or the quality of the devotees that's surrounding. He won't be able to recognize a pure devotee. And I was thinking, because this month we've been reading a lot of stuff on Prabhupada's disciples and their interactions with Srila Prabhupada, and I was thinking that these disciples, they came to Guru first, and they took association first, got Guru, and then got to the point where they figured out what did I take, and what was the whole deal. So do they still qualify as Kanishtas in that case, or were they already advanced devotees who were continuing a process that they left from back? How do we see it compared to the...
It's a very unique circumstance if you think about it. Malati Prabhu talks about how when Prabhupada invited some of the devotees to go out and spread Krishna consciousness, and they enthusiastically ran out the door, she had to take a card with her with the mantra on it because she didn't know how to say it, which was an indication of how fresh and just full of faith the devotees were. It was a confluence of circumstances that led to that. Prabhupada elevated the devotees, as do, this is the effect of a pure devotee. Moon-like rays come from the heart of a devotee, as it's mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and they illuminate the hearts of others. And Prabhupada really did bring the devotees to the degree that they did connect to him in their faith, and they did. So many of them, as you hear, if you read about Shamasundar's life with Prabhupada, he didn't know anything else but Prabhupada. And so they started off with a very advantageous position, in a very advantageous position, and sort of, they didn't have to unlearn a lot of things either. Well, of course, a lot of bad habits, but not philosophical things. They said, here's God. He's shaped like, here's Lord Jagannath. This is God. And they said, really? Okay, great. Well, why didn't somebody tell us this before? And, advancement comes very quickly for those who embrace the teachings of a pure devotee. And Prabhupada engaged them immediately in going out to teach it to other people. And they were summarily elevated to that position of Madhyamadikari. Of course, there are gradations. There are Kanishtas, Madhyam Kanishtas, Uttam Kanishtas, and many points in between. And same with Madhyam and Uttam levels. These are more or less, general categories, and they're measured in different ways. But yes, by Prabhupada's influence, devotees got started right away in a very elevated service. That's the benefit of having pure devotee association. Sankirtan Dasi, good to have you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. When you were speaking about preaching until someone called the police, there were actually 2 instances I was thinking of where devotees were preaching and there was police participation. But sometimes the police actually work to help the devotees and not to shut down the preaching. So one instance was when we were having the Prabhupada Festival along the Commonwealth Pier, where Prabhupada first came to Boston, Massachusetts. So we had this grand Harinam going from the water all the way to Faneuil Hall. And it was such a large group of devotees with such a high vibration that when we reached into Faneuil Hall, where there were thousands and thousands of people, the people actually became stunned and they just froze with large eyes, just like the animals in Vrindavan when they would first hear Krishna's flute, they would just become frozen. And there was actually pictures depicting this where you saw people just frozen, their big eyes. And then they just started wanting to join in and dance with us. And the police, there were several policewomen that started clearing people, clearing a path, and they saw it as a very important event that they wanted to come in and assist with. So that was really amazing. And then another really amazing story of police participation was told by me to me by Mother Kamalini, who's a Prabhupada disciple. She was distributing books in, I believe it was Mexico or South America, and she was distributing books, and then a crazy man came and he just pulled her by the arm and tried to drag her down the steps. And so she was like quickly running so that she didn't fall down, like running with the man as he was like pulling and dragging her by the arm. And the police actually came to her aid and they immediately grabbed the man and arrested him. And then she actually had to go to court and they had a hearing. And the judge, asked if she wanted to press charges. And she said that she didn't want to press charges, but the man did go up to the stand and he just kept chanting over and over again. She was distributing Krishna book and he had looked at the picture of Putana with baby Krishna, where Krishna was killing Putana. And that just became fixated in his mind and he couldn't think of anything else. And he just started chanting over and over again, "They worship a thumb-sized blue boy who sucks the breast of a goddess. They worship a thumb-sized blue boy who sucks the breast of a goddess." And that was it.
You can't make this stuff up. That's what you get when you join the Sankirtan movement, is nonstop, exciting incidents. Thank you very much, Sankirtan Dasi. She's got many more where that came from. Srivatsa for the close.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Yes.
I was hearing your speech or your talk at Bhakti Siddha Sarasvatī Ṭhākura's Samadhi in Mayapur today morning, and you were talking about how dedicated he was to the message of Rupa Goswami, and how he wasn't very interested in making friends, and how he was just interested in speaking the truth as per Shastra. And I was thinking about this, and he showed so much dedication, and how he expected a similar dedication out of his followers, in the sense that I was reading today how he was saying that he expected everyone in the Gaudiya Math to be ready to shed 200 gallons of blood for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I was thinking about, wow, and I was reminded about how you always talk about Chidrakta, and how when we go on books, we're shedding that spiritual blood for Lord Chaitanya, and it's such a perfect it's such a perfect way to look at things, because I was thinking about, as everyone was talking about book distribution, and as Sankirtan Matri was just talking about how you meet all sorts of people on book distribution, and I was remembering about how I went on books with Madhav Govinda Prabhu in Santa Cruz, and how we were randomly approached by someone screaming at us. He's like, Krishna told that he told Arjuna to kill his own family. How can you support this? He starts shouting at us. And I was so scared in the moment. But Madhav Govind, he was so calm. And I was thinking about this. I was like, wow, how much empowerment Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given, and how fearless one must be to be able to spread this Sankirtan movement. And it requires that great amount of compassion. And how Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, he even wished the greatest good upon his worst enemy. And it's such a high standard that he set, that I'm just praying that one day I'll be able to make it there.
Well, you were born right in the middle of it. I mean, you couldn't have landed on ground zero with more precision than coming right into. I mean, the time you were born was right when things were really picking up at ISV as far as book distribution goes. And so, and your wish is coming true. That's for sure. Malini.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, there is one point that you mentioned, it really stuck with me, that you said that how Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura said that once you get really nice mangoes, you just start keeping them for yourself without distributing it to others. Then the source might actually stop your supply. So I was just thinking that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives with some responsibility, he gives you some service to distribute it to others. But if we feel complacent and we keep it to ourselves and not give it to others, then we might take it for granted, but then it might be taken away from you. So this was such a revealing point, Prabhu. Thank you so much for.
Yeah, it's important to remember that everything we're doing is coming from Lord Chaitanya. All our abilities and whatever facility we have is from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as mentioned in the Adi Lila, that the descendants of Advaita Acharya, some of them followed properly and other ones deviated. And when they deviated, they became separated from the tree. And Prabhupada makes a real point of this, about how those, even their sons of Advaita Acharya, if they don't follow and they don't stay connected in the proper way, then they dry up and the tree becomes angry at them, he says. So, really we're dependent on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's the mood. I think that's really an important passage there to keep for us in the 4. You can preserve that one, Malini, and let's keep it in the 4. It's really important. I want to make another point about the mood of preaching, because Srivatsa said, he wasn't worried about making enemies. And of course, we don't compromise, but we also don't try to make enemies. It's not that, we get chid rakta for a chid sharira, so let's get more bloodshed. Actually, we try to adjust the way in which we present in such a way that people find it palatable, so they can swallow it like a slippery elm. It goes right down. And I'm going to read from this book again, Bhakti Siddha Vaibhava, about theistic exhibitions. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta put on big festivals in order to attract the masses. And here's just an excerpt from this. Then I'll make my point more clear. The exposition was divided into 2 sections, spiritual and secular, with items collected from every part of India, and the whole extravaganza covering more than 1 square mile. The secular division demonstrated miscellaneous departments of human endeavor, medical, educational, agricultural, arts and crafts, cattle and livestock, child welfare, athletics and amusements. Several provincial governments sent materials to be displayed. Other attractions were performances of athletic feats such as gymnastic, wrestling, boxing, sword and stick play, and jiu-jitsu. There were musical competitions, dramas, film shows, a circus, and in the words of the harmonist, other varieties of innocent amusements. Prizes, medals, and certificates were awarded to deserving exhibitors and performers. The spiritual section was even more elaborate. The museum contained figures of Vishnu and Krishna and other religious objects such as memorabilia formerly used by reputed sadhus. A book display features volumes produced by different religious sects in diverse languages and manuscripts of rare, unpublished religious works. There were photos and paintings of eminent sadhus and sundry sacred places. A major draw was a huge relief map of India occupying over a third of an acre, constructed on the ground with stone, cement, and brick and showing prominent holy places, the locations of all Gaudiya Math branches, and the routes of Sri Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda's tours. Dioramas in over 50 stalls depicted manifold religious praxis of India with emphasis on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. The practices of pure Vaishnavas, pseudo-Vaishnavas, and other religious sects were illustrated by life-size dolls set against backdrops of appropriate painted scenes, many representing incidents in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Another novelty for numerous visitors was the brilliant illumination of the entire grounds by recently installed electricity. So what I'm bringing out here is his innovation in attracting people to Krishna consciousness. He had talked about having hostels, youth hostels, so youth would come and stay there. Even some of them could apparently be non-veg, just because that's the way they were at that time. But the point was, there's a funnel to bring people in. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had talked about this also, about actually bait and switch, that you're offering what looks to be like, oh yeah, this looks like there's cotton candy and there's Ferris wheels and let's go, mommy. And you walk in and next thing you know, you're there with, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda and hearing Harinam and Kirtan and Harikatha. So the point is that he was an innovator, and he brought to Radhakund some of his sannyasis with shaved head and Western clothes, driving in cars, which was unheard of. But he wanted to show this Yukta Vairagya principle, that the principle was to expand the kirtan. It's Sankirtan. You do it together and you expand it unlimitedly. And that is the mood of our mission. And without that, we don't have much at all. And it won't go very far at all. Neither will we. So we embrace the mood of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura for being Paradukha-dukhi, for being willing to organize ourselves in such a way that we can give Krishna Katha to others, which also includes making sure that we're fully immersed ourselves. Those two things, as I've said many times, they're synergistic. They go together perfectly. And you can use up a whole lifetime doing that. Just ask some of the Sankirtan devotees here what happened to the last 15 years of their life, and they'll say, I have no idea except for one marathon to the next. You can run out your whole life on the field like that without much problem at all. And I propose that that's what Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura had in mind for us, and how proud he would be of all of you as his, great-grandchildren who are just fully dedicated to preaching Krishna consciousness in the West, where Rupa and Sanatan wanted everything to go and where Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted it to happen, and you're actually doing it. You're sticking in, you're staying in a place that is very uncomfortable. It's very expensive too, and you're doing it. And you're making sure that people get these books. So you are connected to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura and his mood. That's what I was trying to show tonight. And hopefully it came through to a certain degree. There's so much more to say about him and his life and his teachings. But I'll leave you with this last excerpt from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4. And Prabhupada writes, personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta taught us the essence, which is that keep the same message, but find the ways and means to present it so that the people can take it and understand it and take it up. That's our duty. And that requires realization. It requires tesham satati yuktanam. You have to think on your feet. You actually have to be there and find that you're an instrument. You have to be the one who adjusts the words according to the faces of the audience and what's going on. Parampara doesn't mean you just bring in an axe and start chopping everyone up because you heard that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had a chopping method. You have to use your own realization and sometimes common sense to integrate the message into a particular audience so that it goes in. And one example I gave tonight was the theistic exhibition. It's indicative of the way that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta thought, is find a way that people who are only attracted to cotton candy and Ferris wheels will gradually be pulled in to hearing Hari Katha and Kirtan. And we have to be expert in doing that in order to be actual followers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. We have to be essence seekers. We're not taking just the form. Oh yeah, we're in a religion. Fine, great. The brick and mortar is not so important. We have to have it to manage the results because people have to have some place to go. But the main thing is the main thing, and it will always be the main thing. And it's being able to expertly inject the holy name into the lives of people and holding their hand while they're doing it so they can get over the nightmare they're in right now, which is quite distressing. And everyone needs our help. And we all need our help too. So let's help ourselves, help each other, and try to help the world. And that will please Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Om Tat Sat. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Thanks to the Jamulas Band for showing up on a Wednesday night. And thank you everybody else for staying up into the wee hours of the night, especially you, Sankirtan Dasi, out on the East Coast, and others who may be out there. Yes, Chicago, you have Prem Sarovra, Shruti Priya, some staying up into almost tomorrow just to hear Krishna Katha. Vancha Kalpatarusha, Kripa Sindhabeva Chapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Can everyone please unmute and say Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
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 Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.